absent. They sent me emails. And Kelly presumably is on her way. And Luis just said we're live and being recorded, so that's good. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:02. And let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone would follow with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good. So roll call. Let's see. I'm here. Chip Kohler's here. Brian Gephardt.
Here.
Carla.
Present.
Ashok.
Here.
Here. Jeff.
Here.
Good. Kathy.
Here.
Siv.
Here.
Susan and Paul, we know are absent. Benita.
Present. Oh, Benita, sorry.
Brian Kilgore.
Here.
Connie.
Here.
Kelly. Okay.
I'm here.
Kelly McMahon.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, great. Eric.
I'm here.
Gerald Green.
Gerald just texted and said that he's having problems getting on, but he's rebooting his computer.
Okay, Anita. Anita, we know Anita's here.
Yes, present.
Okay, Luis came in. I don't know if he's on going to stay or not, but he set us up with the video. And Judith Wallace, you're here. Good.
Here.
Okay, good. All right, good. So welcome everybody. I don't think we have anybody that's new that we need to introduce or have them introduce themselves. So we won't do any special introductions at this point in time unless there is someone. Did I call everybody's name? Is there anybody I did not call? Let's put it that way.
Gerald Green, I just came on, Chip.
Ah, Gerald. Okay, good.
Thanks.
Great. Yep, good to see you. Okay. So let's go to the meeting minutes from October 7. They were emailed out with the meeting announcement and the agenda. So first of all, is there any comments, corrections, additions, deletions, or any other thing that needs to be done? If not, can we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. A second. Anita, seconds. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed for the minutes? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved as written. And Brian, thank you for taking the minutes. Okay, any oral or written communications that we need to know about at this time? Comments from the public, voicemails, emails, smoke signals, digital, analog, or otherwise?
I'm not aware of any comments that we've received via email or phone for the committee.
Okay. All right. Brian Kilgore, do you have any knowledge of anything that might have came in through your office?
Nothing that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, good. All right.
Chip,
Yes.
Chip, Vinita here.
So
Yes.
there was no public comment coming to me directly, but there were conversations going on.
Oh.
So maybe we want to address it at some point. We need to probably go back to the board and explain the mission projects and our and the money allocation to the mission projects, mission high school and that particular area. So there was some conversation going on outside of this committee's conversation.
Where's
But there
it?
was there was
What
a
was
question.
what was the venue for those comments in that conversation?
One of those WhatsApp groups and that kind of thing. So
Well,
they would, but the conversation is happening. The buzz is there that there is a that the committee is that CBOC is not very transparent about the allocation of money to mission. So that's the reason I'm just saying that maybe we want to address it at some point.
okay.
Again.
All right.
Isn't
One-
it the function of the group to bring it up to us rather than us going out? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know. I mean, as I said, I don't know what is the bandwidth. I don't know how it can be addressed or not addressed. But this is what I'm hearing. So I'm just sharing it with you guys.
Just for example, last month there was all this stuff on Nextdoor going on and on about the composition of certain members on of different school board committees, but it just went back and forth on this thing. People who have a problem also have a responsibility to bring something forth rather than just doing as it seems to be you're doing there. If somebody approaches you, you can say, well, there's a way to bring it up, but I don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just saying that, like we addressed a few months back, similar issue to the board. We did not address it as such, but we did go to the board and explain, show them our report one time. I think, was it in March or April, something like that.
Well, we do an annual report. Yeah. In about, around March or April. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But around March or April, we do an annual report. I make me or someone else makes representing the committee, makes a oral presentation with PowerPoint slides.
Okay.
And we are there to take questions from the audience or from the board.
And I believe that thing in what you're referencing was there was actually a parent from Kennedy that came to our meeting to raise an issue. They took the initiative and they came to the meeting. I do believe.
Yes.
I think that was about maybe the first meeting you had attended or something.
No. I had been there before that, but the thing is that, of course, we addressed the American high school area too, but that's okay. I'm just making this committee aware that there is conversation going on. I'm sure we all know about the conversations that are going on behind our backs.
Well, I think what we ought to do as a committee is if we see something like that on Facebook or on Twitter or on, wherever, or, at a cocktail party or a dinner party or a little league baseball game, we ought to encourage the people or person that's making the comments to come to one of our committee meetings and attend, and they'll have their opportunity, and we'll listen and we'll provide information as best we can. And I like to think we are we are very open and transparent, and we're quite welcoming. I hope none of us, or including myself, are too scary, but maybe people think I am. I don't know. But
so Chip, how does it work when we are on Zoom? How does it work? Do you send them the link? How does it work? I don't know if the link is open.
If someone came to us and said, I'd like to attend the meeting, we would send them the link. But
Okay.
Anita, you post the meeting and the Zoom link, several days before the meeting anyway. And, I think if somebody had the gumption and the get up and go to find the information, where's the meeting, they could find it. But,
Fair enough.
and I think contact information is pretty accessible for you or me or anybody on this committee to, both phone numbers, emails, or whatever. So there's lots of ways that if somebody had a burning desire, they could meet with us at our meeting and, get their opinion, get their voice heard. and for us to respond with either right away if we had the information or take an action and get back to them.
Absolutely, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think
But-
we should also mention that we've received email letters in the past that we've also addressed. So if anyone in the community has a question, they can easily send an email to CBOC, and then we discuss it during the meeting and talk about what a response would be. So there's multiple avenues for those who want to have specific questions and they want to ask questions. There are definitely avenues. I think it's a little bit preposterous to answer an amorphous question being posed by a unidentified person. So that's my take.
Agreed. Thank you.
The building on the conversation, I don't know if there would be a way to put more on the district website about how you would speak at one of the advisory committees, because it isn't obvious where to go. So I think that we could potentially make it easier for people to figure out how they would give input to any of the advisory committees.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know if it's something staff could take a look at, right? It's a message on the committees and advisory groups saying, advising where to go to provide email or meeting input.
Okay, I think we've discussed this. Let's keep moving. So let's move on to the budget report, the finance report, and that was emailed out several days ago. So hopefully everyone has that. It's in the same format as we're used to seeing, so it's should be quite familiar. But who's going to give the presentation? Kelly or Connie?
I will.
Okay.
It says host disabled. Chip, would you please make me the host?
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, you should be coming to you. Yeah.
All right. This is the overall financial summary for the Measure E-Bond projects as of October 30th. The total available funding, it's still at 669 million. This number has not changed since the last reporting. And looking over here, this is the expenditure. So since the last reporting, it has gone up by about $2 million. So that's the overall change since the last reporting. And
Connie, is that pretty standard for a month? About 2 million a month, or?
Yeah, pretty standard.
Is it? Okay, it just seems low for this size of a project, and there's many different construction sites that are operating and engineering that's going on, and it just seems like a low number.
Well, Chip, you have to understand too, that the projects that we currently have going on, some of them are winding down while others are starting to ramp up. So you have a kind of a
Okay.
dip and a lull, but we'll start to see much larger quantities as the
Okay.
3 middle schools all come online at the same time for
Uh-huh.
construction. But this is just kind of a normal wind down transition period of funds. That you
Okay,
And there's also a lot in design too, Chip.
yep.
All right, second page. So this is the program contingency right here. The last report, the number was at 3.2 million.
Yep.
And this report, we're at 2.7. And the reason being that there was a transfer of $576,000 transfer from the program contingency to Horner for the locker room project. So that's a difference from this 2.7 versus the last report. And that's the overall change since the last report.
What was the amount that was moved?
$576,000. To be exact, it's 576,850.
Okay,
And that action was board approved back in, I believe, June of
Yeah,
this
June 24th.
Yeah.
And
Was that reflected in the last report that went to the board?
No, it actually was
500,000?
just in this one because that's when the transfer actually occurred. So even though the board action occurred, the actual transfer just occurred when she's reflecting it right now.
Is it usual for there to be 4 or 5 months between the board action and the transfer?
No, but since everyone is working remotely, the routing of signatures and getting the appropriate approvals for her to do the transfer took, it just took a lot of time.
Okay, I ask because that's, that can skew people's perception of the contingency if it trails appearing in the report by a number of months.
okay. And also on this report, we added the projected deficit and surplus. We released the American mod, this number right here, and also the Walters Middle School.
okay.
And in the Washington, there's a little bit of deficit here.
Is that new, relatively new information about the theater deficit? I couldn't remember from the last report.
No, actually, that's brand new, Brian. We got excuse me, we got bids received last Thursday. We reconciled those numbers on Friday, and on Monday of this week, we finalized that number, and that is the deficit that we're experiencing on that project. So we're still in the process of reviewing that and figuring out how we can, adjust without necessarily going back to the board, but we'll make that decision within the next week or so. And then if we're not able to reconcile that, we will be going to the board in December, requesting for additional funds to adjust the balance of that project to make it, level and zero it out.
Okay, no, thank you for very timely information. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, what's the basis for the that deficit?
So when we establish these budgets for the projects, we actually get 3 estimates throughout the course of design. And so it's not really until the bids are actually bid out that we actually get the real numbers back. So in this particular instance, we went out to bid. We actually delayed the receipt of bids by, Gerald, was it about 2 or 3 weeks because we were unsure about the numbers? And
Yeah, it's about 3 weeks.
Yeah, so we delayed it so that we could get, more time for the bidders to prepare. And so we were originally expecting a much higher sort of imbalance, but it came in about $400,000 over. And when we went through the bid analysis, we call what the term is similar to the value engineering, but really looking at what are the alternatives in terms of alternates that were presented in the actual bid. And so I went through with the Vanner team and we identified areas that, these are have-tos and these are things that we can actually delay or delete. And through that process, we've come up with a deficit of now, instead of the higher number, the 333,000. And so we're still doing our analysis and we're still looking within the bond program if there's any funds that haven't been, spent on other projects, or if, the other, I think Washington has the modernization project that may have some funds available, but since we're doing our final audit on it right now, we don't really know completely what those numbers will look like. But if we're able to take dollars from other projects that are closing out, we won't have to impact that project contingency line, and it'll kind of be a zero-sum gain if we're able to do that. But we're in the process of dealing with that right now, so I don't want to make promises that we can't necessarily come through on, but that's kind of the strategy of what we're doing. And that's the reason why this number appeared, is because the bids actually came in higher than the budget that we had established. And it's just, I mean, it's the nature of the industry right now. It's highly competitive, and we are starting to experience the price increase that we were talking about back in the springtime, but now it's actually starting to be realized, and we can, it's tangible for us in terms of the things that we're seeing now when we actually receive bids from contractors. Gerald, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just what you said. I mean, everything is more expensive than it was, 8 months ago. It's harder to procure supplies and materials than it was 8 months ago. And like Kelly said, we're starting to see those fruits kind of bear out. So that's kind of what you're seeing now.
So, but it's a sizable bump, but it's not one that we can't kind of work around. So I'll hopefully have better information for you guys the next time we come together to see how we've kind of managed that and not allowed it to impact the program so much.
What kind of a percentage are you talking about in terms of materials? I know it's every item is different, but just on the average, what is it looking like?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Chip, in terms of the cost increase or the
material. How much are materials going up compared to 8 months ago?
That one's a loaded question, but depending upon what the material is, anywhere from 15 to about 25%. So it's a pretty wide spread.
Yeah, I was going to say 20%, but you can't hang your hat on that, Chip, because every contractor has a different deal with their supplier, depending on how much business they bring to them. And some contractors have had to go to different suppliers because some suppliers just can't keep up with the demand. And so they're going to pass that cost back off on to the end user.
So when you look at construction jobs, the ones that we have remaining to go, and I know everyone is different, so there's not a single right answer, but just generally speaking, how much of the total construction cost is typically material?
Oh gosh, probably I don't know. Probably 70 to 80%.
Yeah, 40, 50%. It depends what kind of job it is. A lot of steel, a lot of concrete. That's it's hard to tell.
Yeah, labor is usually around 12 to 15%. You have your soft costs that are range in terms of percentages, and everybody kind of charges something different in terms of what their overhead costs are. But primarily the bulk of the number is usually between 60, 70% of the overall budget is the actual structure itself and the things that go in it in terms of fixed furniture and equipment and all that stuff. So
recognizing we've only got $2.7 million of contingency left, who's got a printing press that's going to print all this extra money?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're at.
We do have some Prop 51 dollars that are coming in, and so we're in the process of discussing what to do with those. And there's an opportunity for us to, replenish our contingency fund with a portion of those that are going to be reimbursed to us from Prop 51.
I'm not sure I know what Prop 51 is, what that money is used.
Is our OPSC grant dollars that we apply for. So the monies that we're getting now were funds that we had applied for in like 2015, 2016. And so it's part of the state bond program where the state will issue, I think this Prop 51 was like a $9 billion bond program that the state issued a few years ago. And we as a district go ahead and apply for dollars based on projects that we submit for. And then the state will say yay or nay in terms of, yes, your project has been accepted or not accepted, and we'll fund a portion of it. And so we had about 4 or 5 different projects that we had submitted for at that time that totaled I think it was close to 53 or $54 million worth of projects. We have only been funded for about $17 million between 2015 and now. And so the funds, they just kind of trickle in. They're not like, you know, they don't come in all at one time. They come in based on how much money the state actually has available and where you as a district are in line with the state's Office of School Construction in terms of your priority of your project on that list. And
Well,
so
I'm sure when you write a grant proposal, you write it specifically to do something,
right,
not to fund inflation of materials on a construction job at Horner School or somewhere, whatever it turns out to be.
no,
You
but
can't you can't just defer that money to pay for materials on Measure E, can you?
well, actually the projects that were completed for the reimbursement, because part of the process that you have to go through when you get the reimbursement is you have to actually do the work and then ask the state to be reimbursed for it after they've approved you to say, yes, we'll go ahead and give you like a 50-50 match or a 60-40 match. And you guys then show us, hey, you've completed this work. This is the value of the work. And now we're asking for us to be reimbursed. So
Right.
in these particular instances, these are projects that the bond actually funded and completed. So now those dollars, as they come back in, are then reinserted back into the bond to reimburse it for the monies that they had expended for the projects that were on the list that the state said, hey, we'll go ahead and give you $1 match for the work that you're doing. So it's not that we're misappropriating, we're just, you're swapping out for one for the other, and you're just keeping the ball moving forward.
Put another, we have to front all the money up front, right? We have to
Right.
have all the money and spend it up front, and then we may or may not get reimbursed. And then we have the flexibility, if we get reimbursed, then we can put those dollars to other facilities use.
Right.
It just seems odd to me that the state would fund Measure E expenditures with Prop 51 money.
Well, the Prop 51 is the school construction bond. They've been doing those every few years for a while, and they're always some kind of I think they're almost always some kind of matching, right? Because they and that's how they distribute it, right? They match with different districts.
Correct. Correct.
So this is pretty common.
Yeah. So it's not that we're using money to pay for escalation. We're actually using money that's being reimbursed for actual work that's already been completed. And so it just so happens that we're using our contingency dollars to balance out the budgets for the work that's going on in the current program. And it's just, I don't want to say it's abnormal, but it is. I mean, we have escalation that occurs every year, and it's not something that's uncommon that we're doing this. It's
normal escalation, even on materials, is like 3 to 5%, not 15.
We're not in normal times.
Yeah, you're an uncharted.
That's what my concern is. I agree with you. We are not in normal times. So where is magically this money going to come from? Maybe Prop 51 will bail it out. I don't know. But if it doesn't, then where?
So so we have, right, we've talked about this before, but we have three sources of money, right? We for contingency purposes, right? We have the contingency fund. We have, and I really appreciate that staff created the 00 fund, right? We have the additional funds set aside for middle school contingency, which is the new 00. And then we have the 35 million in projects that haven't started. And if need be, for a project that has started, we may have, those projects may not happen, right? So that's the flexibility within the funds we have. And then we have this other potential flexibility in the reimbursed funds. And I don't know how hard it would be to bring back information about the Prop 51 funds to the CBOC in one of our future meetings, but that might be
I can prepare something
good
for
context
the next month, because we actually are in the process of auditing that right now. So I'll have some up-to-date information for you guys for our next meeting. because we actually did get some approval for apportionments for this month. So we'll have a clear picture of what we're actually going to be reimbursed for.
Oh, that'd be great. So while we're right to all be concerned, there's, if we stopped all the projects, if we never started another project, we have about, I think, $41 million roughly that could be used for in-progress projects.
Give or take.
True.
Give or
The
take.
downside of that is the list gets longer of the things that weren't accomplished.
Judith, did you
I'm
have?
not- I'm not saying it's everybody's favorite answer, but that's.
Yeah,
those are the
you're
choices we
absolutely
make.
right. I mean, we've always known that list, is going to either grow or shrink, and it's undesirable to grow. But if it has to, it has to.
One thing I wanted to point out specifically about what Connie is showing you right now is the last meeting, there was a lot of question about when on individual projects, I'm not talking about program budget, I'm talking about a project budget for individual identified projects. At what point does extra remaining funds in that project show up? And we had the request from the CBOC. We gave on a separate list last time, sort of an approximation of what we thought might be coming out of the projects they're about to finish that hasn't been spent yet. So we've transitioned this reporting to show you that earlier. And Connie, if you'll go up one page, there are 3 projects where this shows up. The first one is American High School. So right now, an American High School is right down at the end of the project. You don't want to show this available funds early in the project, but when you get right down to the end and you've got a really good idea that you're not going to get any more change orders, that once you pay everything out, there will be some remaining funds. We're reflecting that here. So at American High School, we're anticipating around $715,000. Now, don't go and spend that money yet. That money stays in that project until the project is 100% closed. So next month, you might see that number's dropped to 650. If there is something that comes up in the project, it could go up to 800. So that money will go up and down a little bit. But what we're reflecting to you upon your request is a little bit more of a sense of individual projects and whether they are running over or under budget. And so we expect to get roughly that. Now, if you go to the next page, Connie. And so at Walters Middle School, again, we're right at the end of the project. We're anticipating about $377,000 may be left in that budget when everything is closed out. And then Kelly's already talked about the $333,000 in negative for the Washington High School, but you see the number 759, that's where they balance out. And that's not to say that any one project is going to pay for the other. But when Walters Middle School closes, let's say it closes with $375,000 left in the budget. When it's all closed, there will be an official transfer of the funds from Walters Middle School into program contingency. And then drawdown of the program contingency will be at the discretion of the board. So at some point, if Washington High School is, if that 333 can't be managed within the individual budget, the extra funding could come from contingency if it's authorized. So we're, at your request, making an effort to give a little bit more transparency within this report. Now, this is a tool that's been in this reporting all along. Procedurally, how we have been directed to proceed was to not show these until we got to the end of the project and just transfer into program contingency. But we will start reflecting these amounts moving forward. So are there any
Sure.
questions about that process?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question, Chip.
Yeah, go ahead, Benita.
Thank you, Judith, for explaining that thing, and I really appreciate it. The concern I have is, what if the board or the community says that they don't want to, if that particular money that we are talking about, say $759,000, if American community comes and says that we don't want you to, we want to spend it in only in American high school area, what are there any processes that we can say that, no, this is not one particular attendance area's money, but it's supposed to be spread out throughout the district?
Do you want to answer that?
Go ahead,
You want me
Kelly.
to-
Like Kelly.
Okay, so it is my understanding that the policies that the board has put in place is that when the extra funds do come back, they are put into the contingency budget and not necessarily held specifically to a particular project or attendance area. And those dollars are to be used to offset any expenditures of projects that are currently going on and already prioritized. So that's a question that you can raise with possibly the board in terms of, if that's something you all, want to do, then you need to discuss it and then present it to them. But it's my understanding that that has been from the very beginning, the policy that the board has put in place that states, any residual funds that are left over from projects are put back into the program contingency to support all the projects in the program and not a specific school or attendance area. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I'm still new, but that's what I interpreted, what I read when I came on board to look at the policies.
And I think that makes sense. I think we all know the board is the one that manages the money when where the money gets spent and any changes in the way the money is spent. So when money is saved, there's a underrun, it should go back to the contingency. That just makes good, that's good fiscal management in my mind.
And I think
Also-
Anita, I think that the commitment that's made to the site isn't to say we're going to spend exactly $404,233,000 on your site. The commitment to the site is to deliver a specific scope of work.
Exactly.
Sometimes because of the market and a lot of conditions, we might have some savings. We always put contingencies in projects so we can hopefully deliver all of the scope that's been promised. So if the scope that has been promised, if they're promised a new classroom and they're promised renovations to the restrooms and they're promised a new track and field, if that has been delivered and there's some savings, the money doesn't belong to the site. The scope of work being delivered is the commitment.
Yep.
And if I could just add to also Benita, when you're talking about a general obligation bond, there are tenets within the bond language that kind of preclude you from just, okay, well, we're done with what was identified in the master plan. Can we get a swimming pool or whatever it is, as an example? You can't just start getting money for things that weren't identified for. There's a formal procedure for that. So you're restricted by the bond language.
Awesome. So, so the
There's
next
no
question,
place or-
I'm very satisfied with everybody's answers. I just have, are we going to talk about it at the board, or are we going to just leave it and hope that people understand this?
Benita, I guess I don't understand. Are you concerned that there are parents out there that,
So my
that have
concern is,
questions?
right, Brian, so my question is that I know last year there was lots of issues from American high school area schools, they were saying that our schools did not get what they needed. And this might come back to us, and this might come back to the committee or to the board, that if we have residual money from American project, why don't we spend it in the American High area? That was my concern. And I understand I understand everybody's point, and I understand that, as Kelly said, I'm brand new. I'm super new to this. You guys know more about it.
I think, Benita, you're bringing up a good thing for us to be aware of, because whether they know to come to us or the board or staff or not, there will be perceptions out there, and we should be listening out for perceptions that need to be addressed, right? Like, I know Thornton is a very important project to the American attendance area, and it's been the subject of a lot of discussion, and so we start to, I think we should be aware of what's happening. But
Brian, I just wanted to dovetail off that. I think that it's important, Benita, if your community members do have concerns, I think their first stop should be at this committee first before it goes to the board, because I think they'll have an opportunity to have a much deeper discussion and actually get answers to their questions versus going to the board and not being able to have an opportunity to have definitive answers given from the board members if they go to the board. Whereas if they come to this meeting and are able to talk to us who are managing it and actually doing the work, I think just as you've been educated, they would have an opportunity to be educated and have their questions answered and have a deeper comfort level that when they did go to the board, they would be prepared, a little bit better prepared than just going and saying, hey, I want, but be very thoughtful in their ask from just not knowing if they hadn't come.
Right. So I understand, Kelly, but unfortunately, not everything comes by me. Not everybody tells me what they are planning to do. They just do it. So as a precautionary measure, if there are policies about the leftover money, I think that should be made very clear somehow or the other. I'm not the expert in the rules of this committee. I'm not expert in where the money goes once there's the leftover money. So I think it will be a good idea for someone to make a statement that this is what is our policy, or somehow get the message out. It's just for the transparency purpose. It's not, I'm not expecting anybody to be upset about it, but just to be transparent.
Well, I think the financial reports are very transparent. I mean,
absolutely.
Judith just explained when there's underruns like that, where the money goes, it goes back into contingency, and it's going to be in contingency to take care of projects that might get in trouble, and that way we don't have to go out to the neighbors and pass the hat and ask for money.
I mean, I suggest maybe this is something we can incorporate into our annual report. We'll be discussing that relatively soon. It's be here before we know it, and that's the best venue to publicize something like that. And then, of course, I think that's the best way to do this, because I actually do appreciate Benita's sensing there could be something coming and wanting to try and avoid as much confusion as possible. So I think that would work if we do that.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Thank you, Brian, for putting it in the right ways. I don't have the best words.
Let's try to wrap up the finance report. Are there any other questions or comments? And Connie, are there any other points that you wanted to make, or are you?
That's that's the overall change.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, let's move on. Thank you, Connie. That was a good report. So we're going to move on to Kelly and her project, monthly project status report.
Okay. Let's see. Just give me a second to pull it up here. I have too many windows open. I apologize for that.
Connie, you need to let Kelly be the host now. Or do I have to do that?
Oh, sorry. I gave it back to you, Chip.
Oh, you gave it back to me? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. No problem. So we're going to Kelly now. Make a- Kelly, you should have it.
Okay, got it. Alrighty, let's see. Share screen. There it is. Share. Can everybody see the screen? I'm gonna try and make it a little bigger. Is everyone able to see it?
Yep.
Slightly
Yes.
larger will be
Okay.
better, but yeah, we can see it.
So this is our standard monthly report for October. As you guys can see, we currently have several projects that are in design. So Thornton Middle School conversion, I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to go out there, but increment 1 and increment 3 are currently under construction and moving along really nicely. And the play fields are now, the sod is in and they're being watered and groomed. And so you can really start to see the shaping up of the play fields and the play areas out there. Increment 3 was actually just bid. And so we're in the process of evaluating those bids. And the contractor did a very good job of managing their sub trades and trying to keep everything in line with what the budget was that we had established for the project. So we'll have a firm
Kelly,
number. Yes.
I'm not to interrupt, sorry, but
Sure.
the thing for Hopkins Middle School conversion said scheduled beneficial use is for this month,
Yes,
this year.
that
Is
is
that
correct.
really?
Uh-huh.
What does beneficial use mean then?
So beneficial use means that we have more than 90% of the work completed and that the occupants of the building are able to actually move in and live in it. But in the meantime, while they're doing that, there's still testing and inspections going on for systems to, like make sure everything's running properly. We're waiting on our DSA final completion paperwork to come back. Those kind of formalized things are going on. So that's what beneficial occupancy means, that you basically are in the house, but there's still a little bit of things that still need to be done to be 100% completed. So, and we're in that process now that I believe the contractor's tentative schedule has them completing 100% by November 27th. And then all the closeout and all of the final paperwork we're expecting to have done by like December 30th or somewhere the first week in January. So,
But this is Hopkins, all right? They haven't even started construction yet.
oh, not Hopkins. I thought you were talking about Horner.
No, Hopkins.
The
Hopkins.
Hopkins line says October 2020, so I'm assuming.
Oh, I'm
Anyway.
sorry. Yes, so issued the RFP. So request for proposal for the construction management services and the project stabilization team that will be monitoring the project. So that is not construction. That's all design related services.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I was thinking we were talking about two different things. I do that all the time. I always.
Okay. I mean, you don't have anything else going on in your life, so I mean,
So I apologize for confusing you guys.
because I thought this used to show like scheduled occupancy or something like that.
No, when we're go to construction, you'll see Horner will have conditional or beneficial occupancy or something. But for Hopkins, we're still in the design phase and we're still working with DSA to get all of our comments back and make sure all of our I's and T's are crossed for approval. So
So Kelly, is it just that those dates are wrong in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth line where it says Hopkins Middle School? It shouldn't be October 2020. It should be a different year.
no, it's actually the contracts were awarded in October. So the request for proposal for construction management and project stabilization agreement are not construction related activities. Those are.
So I think the confusion is when we look in the column that says scheduled beneficial use, we're looking to see when people can
Oh, I
actually
see.
occupy the building, and it
Okay,
says
gotcha.
this,
Kelly, I think that's a typo. Maybe
yeah,
she's
I think it's just a typo.
22.
Okay, I see what you guys are saying. I apologize. I see now what you're talking about. I was totally.
My apologies. That's a
So
typo.
I'll make that correction for our.
What should it say?
It should be empty
Or-
because there's not scheduled beneficial use for Hopkins until 2023.
So it ought to say 2023 then. So this kind of goes back when we originally did this, I kind of developed this concept that term beneficial use actually isn't a contractual term. We have final completion on these projects, and there was a lot of confusion. If we put final completion, sometimes final completion is a lot of paperwork that has nothing to do with the construction that may not finish for 2 or 3 months. So the date in that column is really intended to tell the committee when the site is going to be able to start using that construction. So it's not even a super contractual term, it's more of a generic term. So if somebody says, so when are the students going to be occupying that facility? They'll be in for school of fall 2022. Final completion of that project, maybe 3 months later, if they've got to do some additional site work, or let's say they've just got to clean up their documents and contracts.
Or punch list or whatever, yeah.
Right.
So I'll make that correction for Hopkins. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
So the date for Hopkins should be fall 2022?
The date for Hopkins should be fall 2022. Let's see.
I thought it was 23, or is it 20, like 2 years?
No, it's actually, we bumped that out a year. It's actually quarter Q3 of 2023. So that's fall 2023.
Yeah, fall 2023.
Yeah. And I'm looking at my updated schedule here. So yeah, we have that for fall 2023, just as Centerville is spring 2023. That would hit yeah, end of second quarter 2023. So I will make that correction on that one. Excuse me.
Kelly, actually, the whole report doesn't have a lot of value this month because it's exactly the same as last month's report.
The only thing that changed, I believe, is the percentage complete on.
Yeah, there was one place that went from 98% to 99%, but
Yeah, no,
we'd like to know, what progress have we been making in the last month? That's what the updates column should be. What progress has been made in the last month at these different sites, whether it be the phase, the construction phase.
how far down do you guys want to dig in the weeds? Because I mean, a lot of the stuff that's been going on is.
You can keep it pretty high level. We're kind of
Okay.
high level folk. We don't need to know how many nails were pounded, but if the roof went on the building, that's pretty significant. If the structural steel went up, that's pretty significant.
Okay. Well, I will work to make it high level and show significant changes, because I was looking at this as just a tool for you guys to track milestone activities. But
Yep,
if you
that's
want
what we want.
something that's a little more
But
than
when the milestones stay the same month after month, with no update to the milestone, either in terms of completion or issues or whatever, it doesn't have a lot of value.
well, unfortunately, some of these do take multiple months for us to complete. So there's not a whole lot of change for some of these items that are DSA identified, because, DSA takes us anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get anything back from them. So if I'm meeting with you guys on a monthly basis and I'm reporting out on DSA, I'm not going to have any changes for you if we're still in DSA. So I don't want you to think that what we're reporting, we're snowballing you, but in a lot of instances, there's not a lot of change from month to month until you actually put a shovel in the ground. And so
hopefully in the construction projects, they do change month to month, and it's exact same words as last month. So the weather was good last month. There was no hurricane.
I think when the construction projects are like 99% complete, there's not a lot of movement to get to that last 1% sometimes, because closeouts, it does seem to take a number of months. So I suspect at least for some of these, that's the case.
Well, when we get to 99%, hopefully there's new projects that are getting started. We have a new line item for whatever the projects are, you know, when they're going to start, and some information about that.
Well, I will definitely have some more information for you all next month because I've been, well, I should say, not I, we've been very busy over the last month and this month launching a lot of activity for work that's going to be going on after the first of the year. So
That may be, but
I'll get to that now. So are there any questions on this report as you guys have reviewed it? I stopped in design. So Thornton, Centerville, Washington, Hopkins, and Kennedy are all in design right now. Washington Theater was bid out. And as I said, we are reviewing their bids and we will have a firm number for you all and know where we're at and how quickly that will be started. As far as construction goes, American High School is closing out this month. And we actually received our beneficial occupancy certificate from the state on that, I believe on Friday. So that's kind of like the final document for us to say, yes, we're done. We've done everything that we needed to do for OPSC, and now we can kind of close the job out. The other is Horner. Horner, like I said, we are on to the home stretch with the exception of the locker room and fitness area. Those will go on until the spring, but fortunately, you know, we are in the process of doing our DSA review and back check with that. And we will, you know, be looking to get that buttoned up and moving forward and completed in the spring. But the main project of the middle school conversion will be completed between now and the end of December. And the voice over IP bell speaker and upgrades, that work has been completed. And the Thornton Junior High School site work, we are probably about, I would say 80 to 85% complete on that. And we will be able to update that information for you guys next month. And the completion, the Walters Middle School, Grimmer Fence, and American High new construction are all occupied and completed. So are there any questions on this report?
Yeah, let's go on. Let's move on to discussion topic C, which you brought up last month, the bond program audit.
Okay, I actually have a document that I'll share with you guys that will explain the process that we're going to be going through for that, and to give you guys a clear idea of, you know, what to expect from the audit. So I'm going to share my screen again. And get this. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So as we talked about last time, and as part of our conversation that we had with you guys in terms of how we're looking to manage the bond moving forward, and how we can, I guess, validate and verify at a much deeper level that the bond program has been maintained and expenditures have been appropriate and, you know, done what they're supposed to do. We are going to go and solicit services for an audit that is a full performance audit that will include looking at the entire bond program from the inception up through now. To the audit will include looking at design and construction cost budgets, schedules and timelines, our financial reporting and internal controls that the district has in place right now, any payment procedures that have been outlined specifically for the bond, how that will affect the performance of the execution of work, change orders and claim procedures, bidding and procurement. We're going to look at best practices for procurement and materials and services, if there's any conflict of interest, and also to ensure that we're in compliance with state laws and guidelines for whatever the board policy has been established. The other thing that's going to occur, we're going to do a financial audit. And so the financial audit is going to look at our current calendar year, and it's going to look at all total expenditures for the fund. And then it'll take us through our year end of 2019, June 30th, 2019. We're not able to do 1920 because we're actually in this calendar year. And so we would not have, full, view of what our expenditures are for this particular year, but we're going all the way back to 2016 up through June 30th of 2019. And the purpose of doing that is we're going to verify the use of funds are within the scope based on what the election materials specified, and that they were intended use of the bond proceeds. Anything that were expenditures over $250,000 are going to be looked at. And about 30% of the vendors were current year expenditures under $250,000 are also going to be looked at for compliance with published bond procedures. And so we're going to look at, purchasing, sorry that this is in the way, district policies, project initiation, how purchase orders were issued, contracts and bids, payments, project tracking, and retention and release. So all of those things are going to be looked at in the process of doing this audit. So they're also going to do a staffing.
What are you hoping to find from that?
So what happens when we look at this is to see if there has been any anomalies or inconsistencies. They'll pop up and show themselves, and we can kind of do a forensic review to see if there were any changes or bumps in the road. We can kind of backtrack and see where it started and how it can be corrected so we don't do it again. We've had audits done on the bond for the last 4 years that I was able to look at, and all of our audits came back that we were fully in compliance and that financially we were expending the dollars appropriately, and that there was no mismanagement or misallocation of funds in any way, and that all of the dollars that were audited within, like, I think a 1% level of accuracy. So, and that's like really good. So we're not expecting to have any surprises or any crazy things, but it will allow us to see overall that 360 picture of how the bond is performing and how the execution of the bond has been done. The other thing that has not been done, I'm sorry, go ahead. Was there a question?
I was just going to ask, is this the annual audit, or is this an audit in addition to the annual audit we get?
This is an audit that's in addition to the annual audit. So this is an audit that takes a deeper dive than the annual audit. And so the one piece that's different than the annual audit is this staffing performance audit. And so it's going to evaluate the process and procedures of staff assigned to complete the work in executing the bond program. It's going to look at staffing loads and staff capabilities, processing of information, and best practices for project management. And so that's going to help us to see basically what we're doing and how we're doing it with the team, as well as the process and procedures to execute the work. So, and the other thing I added here was just the selection criteria for the firm. Just to let you guys know, they have to be a certified public accountant. They have to have a minimum experience of 5 years and, demonstrated knowledge of, what we're asking them to do. They have to have and understand the standard for audit governmental organizations, program activities and functions, and understand those requirements as they're published by the General Accounting Office, or as it's referred to as GSA. And then the principal officers of the firms have to be assigned to the district, and they have to be a certified public accountant with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And the firm or staff members in the firm should also be involved with the AICPA peer review program and be a member of the Governmental Financial Office Association on the list of government financial officers that they receive the regular updates and legislative requirement updates. And then the firm has to be in good standing. They have to have a record of completing the audits in a timely manner. They're going to be evaluated with a committee within the finance and business division, as well as purchasing and myself. And then they have to not have had any, debarment or legal, challenges or anything like that over the last 5 years as well. And so they have to have solid references and, be able to substantiate their work experience. In terms of a timeline for this, the RFP is going to be issued this month. And so we're in the process of working with DWK to finalize that, I think within the next week or so, and actually get it issued and on the street. We're going to have the bids or proposals received in December in time for the December board meeting to have the board approve staff's recommendations. And then we're going to have the audit actually begin in January of 2021. And we want the audit to be completed no later than May of 2021. So the final report can be prepared and presented in late May or June to the Board of Education, and to close out our fiscal year, June 2021, with the findings of the audit, and be able to present that information to everyone for this particular calendar year. So that is.
What companies are going to bid?
Pardon me?
What companies are going to bid?
They're all going to be certified public accountants, but they have to.
I know. What are the names of the companies that are going to bid?
I actually don't know that right now. Lelaine Cruz, who's our director of purchasing, she's in the process of gathering all of those names, and they're doing a pre-qualification process right now. So I don't really know who the firms are that are going to be solicited, but there is, I guess, a list of firms that do that type of work that they're going to be soliciting.
Chip, I would assume that KPMGs and Moss Adams of the world would be the types of firms that would compete for this, but there may be some smaller ones as well. But that's just my assumption.
Okay. What's the approximate value of this contract?
We have not established a firm budget at this time. So we're waiting to see what comes up once the RFP is completed and we establish that.
Is it going to be firm fixed price or?
Yes, it will be firm fixed price. And then I believe there's going to be 3 alternates, but I don't know what those particular alternates are at this time.
3 alternates for what?
I don't know, because we're working with DWK to finish everything. And once we finish it, I'll be able to tell you exactly what it is that we're going to be asking for. One of the options is that either the audit is done for 1 year or 2 years beyond the completion of the initial audit. The other is to look at added services, to add added support for bond management. And then I believe the third one is looking at language and assistance on looking at preparation for evaluating the long-range master plan and creating a model for whatever potentially a new bond would be. But as I said, those haven't been firmed up, and it's not something that we have made a decision on, but that's some of the discussions that we're having. And so that is.
Has there been a statement of work that's been written? Or is that what this document is?
That is what this document is.
So this document you just showed us is basically the RFP package?
It is the scope of work that has been developed for the RFP package. All of the other stuff in terms of the legal requirements, I didn't share that with you guys because you're not necessarily interested in all the forms and have tos and.
So you showed 6 or 8 or 10 tasks.
Yes, so I can show that.
Are there detailed task descriptions that go along with that, or is that it?
There are much more detailed task descriptions. I'd be happy to send that to you guys, but I didn't want to spend our time going through a 5-page document on just tasks since we were only limited to just a
If
few minutes.
you could send us the whole package, that'd be good.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, any questions about that? I kind of monopolized that.
Okay. I think that's all I have in terms of the, oh, the other thing that I wanted to share with you guys is
I
that
do have
we
one
did.
more. I do have one more question.
Sure.
Kelly, is whatever that dollar amount turns out to be, is this going to be coming out of the Measure E funds, or is it?
No, it's actually going to come out of our general fund and Fund 35. That's where this will be paid out of.
So it's coming out of other school district
Yes. It is
funds,
coming,
not the Measure E funds.
no, it is not coming out of the Measure E fund. Now, unless the associate superintendent and the business division make a different decision, that is what I've been told, is that it's not coming out of Measure E at this point. But once we get to where we're going, I don't know what the decision will be.
Okay.
Thank you, Chip. That was my question too.
Okay, any other questions, anybody? Okay, Kelly, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're a little bit over. Brian, is there a 7 or a 7:30 meeting right behind ours that some of you have to go off to?
Yep, FAC is at 7:30.
7:30.
A number of us have to be there.
Okay, let's get this wrapped up. Okay, any school board action items that we need to know about?
Sure, there were 7 action items that were taken last meeting. So the CM services were awarded to the Cordoba Corporation for the Kennedy project, Kennedy High School project. The bid for the Washington Theater was awarded to Rodan Builders. There were 2 PSA agreements that were originally sent to go to the board meeting last week that have been now moved to the meeting next week for Centerville and for Kennedy. There was a CPA contract awarded for $22,000 to, oh my gosh, I just had the name. You guys have to excuse me, I'm terrible with names. To Koppel and Gruber Public Finance to work with us on the developer fee justification service, and also to create our annual report that we're required to provide. The other thing that was done, we had our relocation services contract was awarded to Cordoba Corporation as well. And they're going to assist on move management services for the remainder of the Measure E program for all of the projects, so that we don't have any hiccups or major snafus on teachers being moved and furniture and, personal items coming up missing or just not coordinated from interim housing to the new facility. So those services are going to be have been procured by them. Our long range facilities master plan consultant was awarded a contract last board meeting. We are in the process of finalizing that agreement, and they will be on board probably within the next 2 weeks, and they'll begin the process of establishing our committees and beginning the work of doing community outreach and solicitation of the update of the long range master plan. Thornton Increment 2 block construction has bid that work out, and that was awarded. So now we can get started on the actual vertical structure of the new 2-story building at Thornton Middle School. And then the really cool thing, which we've been waiting for a long time, is that Lila Bringhurst was conditionally accepted by the Board of Education last week. So now the hard part is getting the developers to finish their negotiations with council and actually gain full possession of that site for us to potentially use in the spring semester. So those are my action items that happened at the last board meeting.
So the Bringhurst School could open for classes in spring?
We are holding our breath and crossing our fingers that we get the developers to finish and, finish the negotiations with council on full acceptance of the project. But yes, by us taking the conditional acceptance will allow us to have beneficial occupancy of that building and actually begin to use it.
Do you know how many students there are?
When you say council acceptance, is they're accepting their part of the project, is like the shared park or something? Is that what that means? Or
So from the perspective of FUSD, we have basically fulfilled our requirements as the partner. So now we have to wait on the developer group to basically finish and come to the table with what they're required to do to finish the job out.
I was just curious, you said city council's involved though?
No, the city is involved because the city has ownership of the park. And so the city is in the process of turning the park over to Fremont Unified because the park is part of the school project as well. So it's a joint use agreement that's in place.
Yeah. I just thought I heard you say that the developers had to get acceptance from city council. Maybe I misheard.
They do have to get acceptance from city council on their portion of what they're responsible for with the park, but we don't have anything to do with that. And that's like a totally separate issue that is not going to affect us in terms of what we're required to do for ownership of the school. But it's associated with the park.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I'm not able to speak about it because they're in closed session discussions about it. So.
And that's not a Measure E specific project either, right? So, I mean,
No,
it's good. It's good information, but it's not specifically Measure E, I believe.
No,
Fair
it's not.
point, Carl. Fair point, Carl.
I mean, it's good information. Good to know. But
You're
awesome.
right. It's not a bond project.
So since we are talking about out of context and we are talking about not CBOC topics, can I ask another question, Kari?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that okay, Chip?
Yeah, go.
Okay. Kelly, the question was about the break-ins that we are having at the schools.
Yeah,
Do you
good.
have
I'm
any
gonna ask that
idea?
too.
So what is the question?
There are, I know I'm aware of Glenmore, which had a break-in recently last week. There are other schools also which are having break-ins. So is there a plan to deter the break-ins? Is there something that FUSD is trying to do to make sure that the culprits are caught?
So there are several balls in motion right now in terms of having us address that. So Glenmore is one of our very active sites right now. We've had 7 break-ins in 5 days there. So almost all but I believe 10 windows have been broken at that campus completely. So it's like every day they go and it's like, hey, let me get 5 more windows and bust them all out, And so we now have security patrol. We have cameras that are going in. And we also have the current security company looking at all of the other sites and beginning to install perimeter cameras to identify blind spots. So if the police are patrolling or if the security companies are patrolling and they don't necessarily have access on the backside of the campus, we're putting high resolution cameras that can, see well at night and identify, detail of people's faces or, detail of clothing that they're wearing.
Night vision Kelly?
Thank you. I appreciate you for saying that. So we're looking at that, and currently there's only 6 sites that are very, very active. But we just had a meeting today, and we're having another meeting on Friday with 2 vendors to look at their particular products as to whether it would be appropriate for the various locations that we're still looking at. So that's going on right now. I don't have an answer as to when all of the implementation will occur, but we are basically, responding and putting, boots on the ground to make sure that, this doesn't continue to happen. We did have vandalism at Thornton. So Thornton had the contractor's trailer was vandalized and, graffiti. They tried to pry the door open, but they weren't able to. They were able to get into 2 of the storage boxes of 2 of the contractors and basically take all their tools and, supplies and things out. And we found when we did an analysis that there's a camera there, but the camera wasn't focused on the trailers and the storage areas. And so now they've gone and installed additional cameras, as well as added security, increased the fencing and closed the perimeter even more. So we're hoping that that will deter them on that site, because they were really focusing on protecting the work and not, making sure that folks don't damage the work that's been going on and the work that's been going in. So we actually had, I guess he said somebody had a motorcycle or something and had torn up on the ball field. And so they had to fix that and put netting and barrier protection and things around that. So we've got a lot of stuff that we're doing, but we don't have full control over it yet, but we're working on it. So we're very much aware and trying to be proactive.
Are you at the liberty to share the name of the other sites?
I don't have that list right in front of me, but I'd be happy to send it to you later.
That would be really great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chip, for letting me out.
It's been an ongoing problem now for a couple of years. As long as I've been on the committee, there's been vandalism at some schools almost every month.
Oh, wow.
It's an ongoing long-term concern, and 7 break-ins in 5 days. Wow.
And I think now it is just.
I don't know what's going on. Maybe with all these fences up around the schools, we got to get some dogs put inside.
That's not a bad idea.
Two or 3 junkyard dogs that take care of that real quick.
That's not a bad idea at all.
I think people are just taking the liberty of breaking in right now because nobody is at the campus. That even the teachers are not at the campus, so they don't even have to wait till the end of the day to break in.
Yeah, they can do it.
But actually, Vanita, many of the teachers are teaching from school because they have tools in their classrooms to help them do virtual learning. So you have probably about 50% of the campuses are occupied by the instructors, and the principals, of course, are there and their staff every day. So the problem is our nighttime custodians are not always there. So we've changed their schedules so that they're there till 10 o'clock at night and there's someone present, at least till 10 o'clock on all of the sites. So hopefully that will begin to minimize some of this activity. And then the police have informed us that there is a gang of students who's kind of targeting certain areas. And so they're monitoring and watching. So they're trying to get a handle on it as well. So we're hoping that they catch them and that, put an end to some of this stuff. But it seems to be a small group that is very focused on Fremont schools for whatever reason. So.
Oh, actually, I heard yesterday that even San Ramon schools are getting broken into. Livermore has a similar thing going on too. So.
Okay, we got to wrap up. It's a good topic, Vanita. Thank you for bringing it up. Next month, for special topic, we're going to have a Prop 51, how the funds are used for Measure E. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes,
is that what you committed to last time, a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Okay, and then we've had on our list a long-range facility master plan update and forecast. I'm not putting pressure